Are you a man though?
Let me just ask you a few basic questions.
Okay, yeah.
Right. Can a woman have a penis?
Yes.
Okay. Can a man get pregnant?
Yes.
Okay. If a man has a baby and it's through natural childbirth, where does the baby come out?
Vagina.
Through his vagina?
Yes.
There you go, guys. There you go. This is the gift that keeps on giving.
But what the argument is that the changing of the gender does not change sex.
No one's arguing that.
Oh, that's fine. So we agree on that principle.
It doesn't. No one's changing chromosomes.
Right.
That can't occur. But chromosomes aren't defining of who someone is, and it's not always as black and white as people say it is. There are many intersex conditions which are also included in this, and
Hi. Do you, when you're talking about the understanding of the protected characteristics as per the Supreme Court ruling,
Yes.
how do you think that has affected the community that you're representing by your board here?
I think it's negatively impacted the community. For example, if someone is a trans woman and they pass completely as a woman, do you think
that doesn't happen?
I'll get to you in a second. Do we really think that anyone is going to feel that they should be in a men's bathroom? If there is a trans man who has been on testosterone,
That's a woman.
who has been on testosterone for 10 years, for example, beard,
Yeah.
all the operations, would a woman want them in the women's toilets?
Have you read the Supreme Court ruling?
I have.
So you know that when they're talking about trans masculine people who've taken testosterone and have facial hair, that they are recommended to go to males.
Yes, which I think is a bit hypocritical if people are saying that trans women shouldn't go in the women's toilets.
Do you not think that was made a decision on the risk assessment as opposed to personal preference? Because it's the propensity of if a trans masculine person who is essentially biologically female goes into the men's, they're taking a personal risk potentially by going into a male environment full of men, whereas the trans feminine people going into the sex space for females, they are themselves a male in a female environment. They are not the person who is at risk. The people who are at risk are the women who are in that same sex space. So that's the difference.
They're also putting themselves at risk by going in there, because they're opening themselves up to hate that they wouldn't have to experience if they have the confidence to be themselves, and there's other people out there who are telling them they can't do that. They open themselves up to risk by living as themselves every day.
Do you think that risk is in terms of their personal expression of gender, or is it based on their sex?
Could be both.
So if a trans feminine person went into a female bathroom, then do you think that all the women perceive that person as male or female?
Really, it depends. I think it depends on the opinions of the people in there, and it can also depend on how far along in a transition someone is. But from personal experience, once again, I've known many people who don't choose to go into the bathroom of their gender identity until they feel they're okay to do so, for the comfort of themselves and others.
Right.
However, I think they're all putting themselves at risk by going in there anyway. It's risk assessment across the board, and we shouldn't just be focusing on the risk of one side, we should focus on the risk of both sides.
I might ask you that question again because the motorcycle very rudely went across the back.
If I can get the wording good again.
Well, I think it was essentially trying to get the difference between trans mascs and trans femmes using bathrooms of what we'll describe as the opposite sex. So your argument is if someone is ahead in their transition, they are very femme presenting, that there should not be an issue if they use effectively the women's space.
No, I don't think there should be an issue.
Right, and how does that tally with the Supreme Court ruling that says single-sex spaces are for females and males, and people are tooting horns, with your interpretation that if someone is in their transition, then it's their gender as opposed to their sex. So what is your view on that ruling from the Supreme Court?
I think it's hypocritical. I think it counteracts itself.
In what way?
And, well, in terms of trans men being advised that if they present as men to go into the men's toilets, but not the same for trans women. I think it should be risk assessed on both sides rather than just one, and I think it's very biased that it's only been perceived from one angle.
And how would you actually police that? How would you do an assessment on that? Would you say risk assessment? When you have statistics of as I said before, the sexual assaults being 99% male, committed against females and also males. But the vast minority, not saying that women don't commit sexual offences, they do, but as a vastly disproportionate number to males. Do you think that those figures change once someone has gone through transition? Do you think it stays the same? Do you think that trans femmes are more or less likely to commit sexual assaults if they have transitioned?
I can't speak on statistics of that since they haven't actually done a study on it, which...
I can give you some statistics. 60% of trans-identifying men are in prison for sexual offences. 60%. That's 3% of women and 17.9% of men.
60%?
60% of trans-identifying men, so that's, you would call it a trans woman, 60% of those are in prison for sexual offences.
60% of all of them in the entire country?
Of those that are in prison. In that entire 60% of those, yeah,
of ones that are in prison
are in for sexual offences.
What percentage of the prison population is trans women?
I don't know that figure. But
so it could be 60% of 10 people.
But that's still 60%. So what you're measuring is the propensity to be in jail.
We're looking at statistics of people who have been convicted of crimes, not statistics of the country as a whole.
I'm just saying.
That's 60%.
That's the fact. So
that's 60% of trans women in prison could be 0.2% of the entire population of trans women.
I could dig actually how many. It was I can't remember the exact figure. It was maybe up to somewhere around about high hundreds or thousands or 1,000.
Was that an organisation called Fair Play for Women did a subject access request, a freedom of information request.
Cheers, mate. Thank you. Cheers. Thanks.
Which was trying to get statistics on how many of the offenders were actually being recorded as male or female, because part of the group that are standing behind me was sort of complaining about was that sexual assaults, and particularly sexual assaults against women and children, including paedophilia, were being recorded as female crimes as opposed to male crimes if the person had a gender identity that was feminine as opposed to being masculine, or traditionally what you call trans women.
What I'm assuming they're basing these studies on, in terms of men are more likely to sexually assault than women are, is that study based on hormones that person would have?
It wasn't a study, it was actual figures of who was incarcerated in the prison system at the time when they did the FOI. And what happened was the Ministry of Justice didn't release figures, so they didn't give the full picture. They only released it for certain percentages of the prison system, and I think there was about 30 or 40% where they didn't release the figures. So Fair Play for Women did an interpolation, an assumption based around the other figures of that this was the general prison population that was then identifying as trans, and the type of charges that they were in prison for. And it turned out that there was approximately sort of 14% of the male population were in prison for sexual offences, for including sort of paedophilia and offences against children, sexual assault and child sexual abuse images. When they looked at the trans population, it was 4 times higher than the national population for males. So what you had was a subgroup who were effectively committing offences against children and sexual offences, which was 4 times the rate of males. So it wasn't just high for what they would identify as their comparator population, which would be females, which was, I think, about 0.05% of the actual sort of incidences. It was actually 4 times the figures that it was for males. Now, when they actually got this presented as a report, they said, we don't have all the figures, so we've made a conservative estimate. And then finally, when the Ministry of Justice came in and said, we have to reevaluate these figures and this is all completely wrong, when they put their own figures in, the results were actually higher than the interpolation that was done by Fair Play for Women. Now, I know you're saying that trans femmes or trans women are a very small percentage of the population, but if their offending rate is 4 times higher than the male population, that is concerning when you're having them accessing female spaces, particularly when they're accessing prisons and women's refuges, where you have vulnerable women who have been sexually assaulted and who don't want to share spaces with males. So that's essentially the argument from the group.
I think if we're talking about rates of offending, then it also needs to be discussed how disproportionately people are reporting sexual offences. People are often scared to report sexual
I'm loving
offence.
the mental gymnastics here. Go on.
Well, no, let us speak. So is there your argument that people are more likely to report offences from trans feminine people as opposed to males?
I believe there is.
What's that based on?
That's based on the fact that
No, where you have a view, which I'm taking at face value. So what has informed that opinion where you think you've got a view that people are reporting, or people are more likely to report these crimes?
people aren't reporting crimes at a higher percentage from people who identify as men. So that could be cisgender men. People generally, there's many studies on disproportionate crime statistics based on reporting.
Okay, name one.
Name one? Yep, the government released one.
Which one?
If you search.
I haven't.
Oh,
No.
I can pull it up.
Please do. I'm just curious. I'm not trying to
Oh, no, I know.
trick you. I want to know what your sources are, so that I can then ideally put a reference on the video and say, well, look, this is why. I'm more interested in finding out why you believe what you believe, because I think it's important to have conversations about why there seems to be such a disparate position between what I think, or what you believe is to be a hate speech, which is trans women are men as a banner, which they believe is actually a reality of the situation, which is that they're not excluding trans femme people for being trans, they're excluding them for being male. That's their position. So it's important for their position to have the sex of men on the banner. Okay.
Men is.
There's that.
Being a man isn't a sex, it's a gender.
Based on what?
Based on the fact that if you say someone is male, that indicates their sex.
Yes.
But if someone's like, oh, I'm a man, that is how they've chosen to identify themselves. Would you say you're a man?
I think it's obvious from looking at me
I mean,
that I'm a man.
it's nice to ask though, isn't it?
Not really.
Would you say you're a man?
No, but nobody's ever asked to ask if I'm a man, because I obviously am one.
Would you say you are a man?
Well,
Yes or no?
what do you think? Looking at me,
Oh,
what
no,
would you?
I want to know.
What would you think looking at me? What would you
I'd
think
just
looking
like to
at
know,
me?
wait,
I'm not that tall, I'll give you that.
Would you say that you're a man?
Well, you know the obvious answer to that.
No, please tell me.
Can you not tell by looking at me? Can you just look at me? Can you not tell by looking at me if I'm a man or not?
Anyone could have an intersex condition or
Intersex?
be trans. You know?
Okay, tell me about an intersex condition that you know of. Just name one.
XXY syndrome.
XXY, what's that called? It's 47, it's 47 XXY, what's it called?
Yeah, you say
Take
what
all the
it's called,
time you
know.
need. Yeah, it's called Klinefelter syndrome.
Yeah.
Who does it affect? Which sex does Klinefelter syndrome affect? Males. Okay, it's a male with an extra X chromosome. So XX. So generally, the traits of Klinefelter syndrome is a reduced amount of testosterone. Okay, maybe smaller testes, but they're still a man. Intersex is quite an old term actually. Yeah, it's a disorder of sexual development, and there's about 40 of them. Name another one.
A lot of people identify with the term intersex.
Okay.
And I'd like to respect the people who would like to use that term.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Well, it's quite an old term, really. It's an umbrella term for various disorders of sexual development. There's about 40.
You never
You
know
told me
how someone
XXY.
identifies if they
Okay.
have that.
What's
You never know.
53X?
53X.
53X syndrome. What's that?
That's not what the discussion's about.
That's another intersex question. Another intersex condition.
Now, my point was to highlight that me asking you, are you a man, is a very valid question.
Okay, right.
Someone,
So
someone could not be.
let me tell you something that you might not know. Okay, trans rights.
Kind of struggling to answer the question on if you're
Trans rights activists, okay, use intersex as a red herring, okay, to throw people off. People identifying as trans have nothing to do with intersex, okay? That's a really unfortunate condition that people are born with, but trans rights activists like to use that condition to throw people off the scent, all right?
However, there is a large overlap in the communities due to a lot of intersex individuals not identifying with the way they're born. There's a large overlap in the communities, and I think that needs to be addressed as well.
A large overlap of what?
A large overlap within the communities. Intersex people who are also transgender.
That call themselves trans?
Yeah.
I've never come across
There's
one of
quite a few,
those.
actually.
All right. So the thing is, what trans rights activists do is they use intersex to say that there are more than two sexes, try and blur the boundaries. There are only two sexes, okay? And that is based on your reproductive structures within your body, what your body was designed to do, whether it works or not.
What would you say about people who have both reproductive
Both
systems?
reproductive. Tell me a condition where people have got both. Name one.
There's quite a few.
Okay, if there's quite a few, you'll be able to name one.
You see, I'm not an expert.
Okay,
in
well,
intersex
you're
conditions.
talking about it and
However-
bringing it up, so you should know. Do
However,
you want me to tell you
I
one?
still think you're struggling to answer my main question.
What, whether I'm a man or
Yeah.
not? Yeah, well, I've been on this planet 54 years, and it's only in recent days, recent months, when I speak to trans rights activists like you that question, are you a man or not? You're the only people that throw it up.
Question: Are you or not?
What? Well, I'll let you decide that. Okay, tell me an intersex
Oh, I don't
condition
like to- I
where
don't like to
people
assume.
have got ambiguous genitalia, which is the question you asked me.
Any of the intersex conditions can have ambiguous genitalia. It depends
No, they
on
can't.
how expressed
No, they can't.
those traits are.
So Klinefelter syndrome haven't got ambiguous genitalia. Okay, 5ARD.
Small cases where they are.
What's 5ARD?
5ARD?
Yeah, that's an intersex condition, a disorder of sexual development, which Jermaine Khalif, the boxer, okay, in the Paris Olympics, and Caster Semenya, the middle distance runner, and the London 2012 Olympics had. They had this condition called 5ARD. Neither of them identified as trans, but they were both male competing in female sports. It's called 5-alpha reductase syndrome. You knew about that, right?
I did.
Did you? Okay, tell me the characteristics of it.
It's to do with hormone levels.
No, it's not.
It is.
It's not to do with. It's about a missing enzyme. It's a missing that enzyme which causes the production of dihydrotestosterone in the womb. Okay, which forms male genitalia.
Yes.
You knew that, did you?
However,
you're nodding along after
what
I've
would
said
stop
it.
them playing in women's sport?
The fact that they're men.
Okay, but if they have that genitalia, but
They-
their hormones in their body,
They have ambiguous genitalia, often
ambiguous
female,
genitalia.
often female looking.
Ambiguous
Yeah, but internally, okay.
yeah.
Internally within the abdomen they have testicles, okay, so come the age of 13, 14 they go through full male puberty, they get that testosterone rush, okay, and become males.
It doesn't actually seem like you know a lot about biology.
Well, you don't know nothing. I'm asking you about these questions. Why would you say that? Why would you say I don't know a lot about biology when I'm telling you about an
You're viewing
intersex
something
condition?
that has a lot of grey areas in a very black and white way.
It's pretty like what? Like people with 5ARD are men, like Caster Semenya and Jermaine Khalif.
Right, that Jermaine Khalif won the female boxing gold at the Olympics.
Doesn't affect me.
Yeah, but
Affects women. It affects
In
women
what way?
who were in the boxing ring. The Italian competitor was punched in the face and left the ring after 37 seconds because she had never been hit that hard because she was fighting a male. So do you think that women who are in competitive combat sports should be allowed not to fight males who identify or have intersex conditions?
Well, if we're getting into that debate, then isn't that just the whole can women be as strong as men argument?
But women aren't as strong as men, that's why they're different
They could
categories
be.
for male and female. There's a huge difference in terms of the upper body strength of males and females, particularly in those sports such as boxing. It's 165% stronger weight for weight, height for height, pound for pound from a male athlete for a female athlete on the upper body strength and what's called the punching power. So in a sport like boxing, which is actually my sport, men hit 165% times, which is phenomenally different in terms of the female strength. And the damage that it can cause against women, it's not just a same bone structure. Men have a much higher bone density, so they can take impact a lot harder than women. They have a different Q angle on the hips, which means
Thanks,
that when they're
Mr.
actually
Tarek.
standing and they're taking impact and they're absorbing impact, it affects women an awful lot more by the same weight. So you could hit a man the same pressure that you're hitting a woman, and the woman will actually be more deformed by the actual physical pressure. So first of all, you're hitting harder as a man, and also the women who are impacting have less density in their bones, are much more likely to suffer damage. So it's not just an issue about saying, well, you know, women can be as strong as men. That's never been an issue. Men are physically stronger. Women should be allowed to compete in sports where they're not going to be killed by being punched in the head.
Then shouldn't the sports be, like the groups that people are fighting, be based on personal strength rather than...
Well, they do. In boxing, you have weight categories. So you have the heavyweight, super heavyweight, lightweight, bantamweight. There's about 15 different categories, and that's based around your actual body weight. But also within the sex, they appreciate that the males hit harder and have a different bone structure and a different density. So that's why they're categorized by sex. You have the two channels, male and female, and then you also have the categories, the weight categories within that, and also the different sort of sectors of...
Then, in that case, shouldn't a woman who may have higher bone density or maybe that level of strength, shouldn't they be competing against people who have that?
No, they should
similar
be
strength?
competing against people in their own sex category in the same weight category. And if you want another analogy, the Paralympic Games have exactly the same process where they have a weighting system, grading system based around physical attributes and around disabilities. So there's a complete spectrum of the different sort of like different mitigations that you will have if you're doing particular sports. So if you're doing running, then it's based around limb access, and each individual person is assessed as a set long case, and they're given a particular grading, which is a kind of like a golf par as to what their mitigation is. Now that's across all of the Paralympics.
So if there's all these regulations, then wasn't it decided that these people could compete against women?
No, that's the Paralympics.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so in the Paralympics you don't have mixed sex competitions. You have the male competition, the female competition, and the mitigation against the particular sport depending on the disability. So if you have, you know, like I say, sort of runners who have visual impairments, then there is different categories that they can compete in. So there's all of this situations that happen in sports, and that was actually brought to be the fundamental reasoning for having trans athletes compete at the Olympic sport. They were using the model of the Paralympics and saying, look, they should be competing in the male category but have a different weighting system as per the Paralympics. But the trans athletes didn't want to do that. They wanted the validation of competing in the female category because they identified as female even though they were male. Now, women's rights groups, in particular Fair Play for Women, came to that argument and said, well, this is ridiculous because what you're doing is you're disadvantaging females from their own categories in sports. But not only that, you're presenting a physical health risk to competing against a male who is much stronger, because there was not these... When you're doing the boxing category, Emain Khalif had a 6-7 inch advantage against the Italian competitor, as well as a weight advantage, as well as being male. So there was no remit where that was actually sort of a fair competition, where he was fighting against the female athletes. And as a consequence, there were 2 gold medals in boxing that went to male athletes with DSDs, which is, I think just mentioned, differences of sexual development, which meant that because they had been recorded on their application certificates as being not male, which is not the same thing as being female, they were then allowed to compete. And then the IOC, which is the International Olympic Committee, didn't take up an issue to then protect female sports. So then you had 2 males in the boxing, won gold medals in the female categories of the Olympics, and also injured all these women along the way. Do you think that's fair?
My question about that is...
Do you think it's fair?
I'll answer that in a second. My question to you right now is, if on these forms...
Why don't you answer the question?
Give me a second. If it says on those forms, for example, it says not male, but you're saying, oh, that doesn't mean they're female.
It didn't say not male, it was male or female.
Yes,
and
what did it say?
No, they put in that they were female, so that was technically fraud in the application process, but the International Committee didn't take action because of the internal lobbying of activists who then said, oh, but you can't do that because this person identifies as female. Now what that does is it immediately disenfranchises all the female sports athletes, because you then have a higher placement, even if you're disregarding the safety element, which I don't do, because obviously in a contact sport it's huge, but if a boxer who's male places anywhere higher, all the females in that group then get docked an entire place. So whoever was the 3rd position then becomes the 4th, etc. Now at the 2016 Olympic Games in 800 metre, where Caster Semenya won the gold medal, the 3 athletes who stood on the podium were all males with DSDs. There wasn't a single female athlete on the podium. So you had Caster Semenya, then Dutta, and then there was the 3rd athlete. And all the 3 women who then came in 4th, 5th and 6th would have been on the podium, would have won gold medals, which is not just the international praise, it's sponsorship deals, it's a lucrative career in brand endorsements and various other kind of things. They had their entire sports careers quashed because the IOC allowed males to compete in that sport. Now back to my original question, do you think that is fair?
I think that it should be based on strength and not on their gender identity.
Do you think that it's fair that 3 males took the gold medals at the 2016 Olympic Games from women?
I'm reluctant to say that they're males, if I'm being honest.
But they are males with DSDs. So the legality, the ruling, that's why Caster Semenya has not challenged the legal case. Caster Semenya took it to the International Arbitration Court in Brussels. And then that's why the International Boxing Federation and all of these sports organisations affiliated with the IOC then brought in sex testing as a result of this pressure from women's groups saying that it's unfair for males to compete in female sports. And Caster Semenya and Kamani Khalif have declined to participate because they have to do a sex test. And that sex test, particularly for Kamani Khalif, those were disclosed from the Paris lab that did the sex test and said this person is male. And also prior to the Olympic Games in 2024, Kamani Khalif and also Louis Yin, who was the Chinese boxer, were barred, they were demedalised because they'd been in the World Boxing Federation and had their medals stripped from them because they failed the sex test. They failed the gender test, what they call gender, at the World Boxing Federation. So they actually had their medals stripped, but because the policy was different in the IOC, it meant they could still compete even though they were males. And there you have the situation where you have 2 males who then won in the category of female. Do you think that's fair?
How do you feel about trans men competing against other men?
You said you answer the question.
No, I'm just curious. I'm actually just curious just to know the full stance on it.
I'll answer your question if you answer my question.
Do I think it's fair?
Do you think it's fair?
I think it's fair.
Why do you think it's fair?
I think it's fair that people compete in a category that they've been approved to compete in.
Competing with a leaf blower, hang on. No.
Leaf blowers.
Hang on. I'm going to move slightly closer. I don't think it's going to be a little bit of difference.
Have you ever competed in any sports at all?
I have.
What do you compete in?
I'm a boulderer.
A boulderer?
I do bouldering.
Oh, so you do climbing?
Rock climbing.
Yeah.
She said rock climbing. Bouldering.
Bouldering. I'm not in a harness or anything.
Okay. So bouldering is like freestyle rock climbing?
Yes, there's competitions.
Okay, right. I understand that. So Philippa is a boulderer, not a rock climber. Okay. So is there a different, do you realise that a different upper body strength between males and females in rock climbing? Bouldering?
They tend to have mixed competitions as
Right.
well as set competitions. So people can choose whether to participate in one that is separated or they can compete in a mixed one, and there's a choice in that.
Okay, but they can choose.
Yeah, there's a choice in that.
And what is the National Federation? So what's the equivalent of bouldering as would be, say, the International Boxing Federation? What's your governing regulatory body in bouldering?
There isn't really a specific one, but they do compete in the Olympics. But
So there will be a one for the Olympics?
There is one for the Olympics, but it's an Olympics-based one where people apply to it.
Right. So that's pretty much the same in every
Yes.
sport. So if you're going to compete in boxing at the Olympics, you'd have to go through the International Boxing Federation, and they do the sex testing, they do the blood testing for doping, all that kind of stuff, and then you then get through various rounds, and then you go off to the Olympics and compete. Okay.
For bouldering, there tends to be a mixed competition as well as separate.
Oh,
because
but they do both.
They do a whole range, and I think that's good because then people can decide which one they want to actually partake
Right.
in.
So who is the current winner of the mixed sex one?
The mixed sex one?
Yeah.
I didn't watch the last Olympics actually.
Yeah.
I saw a Nigerian competitor do like a weird, twisting thing. Do you think there's in the bouldering, do you think there are any differences or any advantages to being male as opposed to female?
I think it can depend because it heavily depends on the person's strength. Again, but I've seen many people who identify as women bouldering, and this could be someone who was born as a woman.
Identify as women, or
Well, it could be someone who's born as a woman, as women. It could
Yeah.
be, and I've seen many that have way more upper body strength than someone who was born as a man.
But
It really depends on how people are using it in ballroom.
But
really
that's
depends.
one sport, and even then you're being very cagey about sort of saying born as a woman, born as a man, can do mixed sex, whatever. Are you saying that there is no difference in upper body strength in that sport between males and females?
Some people might find it easier,
Yeah.
some people might find it harder, but then again, it can depend on many factors.
But again, that's a cop-out question by saying some
Not
people,
really.
and you're not giving. If I was being blunt, I would say you're being dishonest by withholding what you think is actually the case. I don't know anything about bouldering or rock climbing or anything like that. I've got no context for that. But do you see how that's not a combat sport?
Oh, I see your point. It's
Yeah.
not a combat sport. I don't play any combat sports.
Okay.
Can I just ask one question
think-
here about the Olympics? I don't want to butt in too much. So you said it was fair, you eventually said it was fair that a man was competing against a woman. Can you name me one Olympic sport where a woman holds a higher record than a man? One Olympic sport.
As I said, I don't really watch the Olympics.
Just what? Okay, right, do you want me to tell you one?
Oh, you can, yeah.
I can't
So-
because there isn't.
Yeah.
There is no Olympic sport where a woman has achieved a better or faster score, a faster time, a better score than a man in the Olympics. Not one single one.
I don't really think
Even
that's
in-
the fault
in-
of trans people,
it-
if I'm
it-
being honest.
No, I'm just pointing out the differences between the two biological sexes. Okay,
No one's
which
denying that there's differences. It's how you go around the differences.
yeah, but you said it's fair. You can't deny that there's differences and then say it's fair.
Because what you're doing is you're saying that it's fair because you have a moral reason for supporting the inclusion of trans femmes in the female sport because it's fair to your idea of inclusion, but it's excluding all the women who are then competing in that sport.
My point was about how there should be a choice in if people.
But what if women haven't got that choice because it's automatically coming from the regulator that a main Khalif is fighting in the female category in boxing? The women who were competing didn't have a choice in that. The only choice they had was not to compete or to withdraw. So that's not a choice. They're not choosing to compete against males.
That's not their fault or anyone in that situation's fault that there wasn't a choice.
Yeah, so it's not a choice. You asked me a question about trans-masculine people before.
Yes.
What was it? Sorry, can you repeat it?
If a trans-masculine person
Yep.
is competing against men,
Yep.
do you have any issue with that?
I think that there's a physical disparity between, obviously, even if a female is taking testosterone, that will cause muscle development, but it won't change the bone structure, it won't change the height, it won't change the limb length. So, for instance, there's an
You can
athlete.
change bone density though.
You what? Sorry?
You can change bone density.
It doesn't change
There's been cases where it has changed bone density.
in females who've taken.
Testosterone for a long period of time.
No, it's actually the opposite. It causes osteoporosis. So you have huge
can
cases.
do.
Oh no, it
Oh,
causes heart conditions and osteoporosis. You have young people who transition and then are on testosterone for sort of like 5, 10, 15 years, have much higher rates of actually limbs collapsing because of the testosterone essentially eats into the bones and they end up with osteoporosis. So it doesn't make it stronger, it actually has the opposite effect. It decalcifies the bones.
This is what I mean when I say people look at it in a very black and white way. Both of those can be outcomes.
But there's actually a physical process, there's a medical process that happens when you give testosterone to females, because even though there is a small amount of testosterone in the bodies, in terms of giving what is large doses of exogenous, which is sort of external to the body injections, that then causes problems with congenital heart failure and then osteoporosis. That's everywhere. That's not just like an optional thing that you can decide not to have osteoporosis. It
No,
happens
you
when
don't
take
decide.
testosterone.
You don't decide. But it doesn't happen to everyone.
It happens to the vast majority of people who have testosterone for a long period of time.
But it doesn't happen to everyone.
But you said that it didn't happen and it was actually
No, you see,
increased
I'm
their
not
bone
about
density.
making sweeping generalisations about a whole group of people.
But you did say that it increases the bone density, so you've actually taken a position that is diametrically opposed.
It can do.
Give an example.
Give an example.
Yeah.
You can look at the. It's
I'm going
very
to ask you
simple.
your email and I will respond
Oh,
to
yeah.
your... If you
I can
send
say-
me
I can send you
literature,
it. Oh, yeah, I
I
can
will
do.
definitely look at it.
My signal's naff right now because we're in city centre, but I can,
Okay.
I can give you my email.
But in terms of trans masculines competing against men, If they wish to do that, that is their prerogative to do that. And there's a young athlete in America who's part of the college wrestling circuit called Mac Beggs. Have you heard of Mac?
I have, yes,
Yeah.
in Texas.
Yeah, so a young trans masked person from the age of about sort of 14, 15 was on testosterone for transition from a very young age, and wanted to compete on the boys team in high school and couldn't because of the regulations of the school, so was then competing against a female, and then effectively because they were doping, that's what is then classified in sport. If you're taking extraneous testosterone, you're considered to be doping. That was then giving Mac Beggs a huge advantage against the female competitors, because even though they were sort of comparable in terms of size, had much more developed muscle, had much more increased aggression, which is something that is not really talked about in terms of the trans mass population. But then it wasn't actually through Beggs' fault, because they wanted to commit to the male contenders, and it was actually the schools that were preventing that. I have no issue with Mac Beggs competing against men, absolutely none whatsoever. I think that there will be at a physical disadvantage, but if they want to do that, that's their prerogative. But if you're talking about trans femmes competing against women, that is not their prerogative, because it's the people who are competing against them that need to worry about.
If we're talking about the safety of everyone involved, then you can't pick and choose your stance on it.
Yes, you can.
Not if your argument is safety.
No, you're saying that it's a symmetrical argument. You're saying that if trans
I'm not
mass
saying it's a
can compete
symmetrical
against
argument.
men,
I'm saying
well, that's exactly what you said.
I'm saying that if you're valuing the safety of the people competing, then you can't pick and choose which categories people can compete in.
Yes.
So your stance is, as I gather from what you're saying, trans women shouldn't compete against other women for the safety and advancement of those other women.
Correct.
But trans men can compete against other men, even though they might be in danger if they do that.
Yes.
So you're picking and choosing people's
No,
safety.
what you're saying is that if someone wants to put their own safety at risk, they can do that. Trans femmes are not putting their own safety at risk, they're putting other people's safety at risk. If I wanted to put my safety at risk and I want to dance out in the middle of traffic, that's my prerogative. But it's not my prerogative to then push you out into traffic and say, well, look, it's symmetric, I believe that someone should be pushed. That's the difference. It's not about what you describe as a symmetrical argument. It's a risk assessment on the people that the person is interacting with. If Mac Beggs chooses to fight physical combat with males who are bigger and stronger than Mac in the male competition, entirely their prerogative. If the same trans femme wants to compete in a wrestling competition with females, absolutely not, because it's not their prerogative to do that. It's a prerogative for women who are then fighting a much stronger male who identifies as female. That's the difference. Your argument is kind of like well, you're doing it for the trans mass, therefore you can do the same for the trans femme. The difference is you have a huge discrepancy between the body dynamics and the impact that you can cause to someone. So for instance, there was about 2014, there was a ex-Navy fighter who fathered 3 children. It's called Farron Fox, and then decided at about the age of 20, 34, something like that, that they wanted to transition, entirely their prerogative. But then started fighting in the MMA sector in the United States against females and didn't tell them that this person was male. Now, the difference you have is females were in a combat situation with someone who had male strength, even if they stop taking, or they take estrogen, it doesn't counteract the testosterone that's in the system, and it certainly doesn't remove the strength. There's been reports on this, that there was a 10-year study that even after, and these were done on doping systems, so there was like 10,000 population, it's all about the Olympic sports. You don't remove the testosterone advantage, even if you then put estrogen on there. All it does is sort of change some of the external sexual characteristics, such as your skin softness and everything else. It doesn't change the strength.
Do you think it would be fair if someone has been on estrogen for say 20 years? Would you say it was a fair competition if they competed against men?
Someone who has been on estrogen?
Yes.
So someone who is masculine, someone who's male who has taken estrogen, and they're competing against men. That's entirely their prerogative. Do you
think it was fair?
It's entirely their business. Someone who is male, who is on estrogen, choosing to compete against males, that's their business.
But would it be fair?
It's up to them. It's their business.
Can I add
that's
to
what
your
we should
story
do for all of it.
of Fallon Fox? So his male name was Boyd Burton, and he had, one actual bout that he had was against a woman called Tamika Brents, okay, who was a real strong woman. She was you know, yeah, she was an outlier as far as women are concerned in how strong and powerful she was. She fought Boyd Burton, Fallon Fox, and in the first round, okay, he kneed her in the face and broke the orbital bone in her skull. So broke Tamika Brent's skull. Tamika Brent didn't know she was fighting a man, all right? Do you think that's fair?
I think people should be aware of what they're entering into.
She didn't.
So the promoter lied, Fallon Fox lied, and Tamika Banks only found out afterwards when getting surgery on an orbital fracture, which means that the entire skull was shattered.
Oh, yeah.
Because she was in a fight with a male, and the promoter of the event didn't say, and Fallon Fox didn't say, just joined as a female, and no one questioned it, and no one even did any due diligence to sort of check if this person was actually male or female.
In contact sports, isn't injury a risk anyway?
That's a really shitty cop-out.
No,
Yeah,
no,
but
I'm genuine question. Is there risk assessments for that anyway?
There is, but you know that you're fighting in sex-based sex-based categories, and you take that risk based on that. She was fighting a male. Do you think that's fair, though? Would you condemn that?
Condemn it. What do you mean by condemn it?
Say that it's wrong for Fallon Fox, a man, to be fighting a woman and beating her up in the ring.
Without disclosing that they were male.
I think it's completely fair.
There you have it.
Fair.
There you have it, guys. There you have it. The brainwashed Generation Z.
Why is it completely fair?
How do you know how old I am?
Oh,
You don't
because
know how
I
old
have perception.
Oh, you
Yeah, I've lived on this planet for 53 years. So you're Generation Z. Tell me I'm wrong.
What generation are you?
I'm Generation X.
How old are you?
I've just told you, 54.
You're 54. Oh, you're younger than my dad.
Right, okay.
So if your dad's 56, then you've got to be. Yeah, I think.
So he has you late in life. You're Generation Z. You're not a millennial. You're too young.
Oh, my sisters are millennials.
Okay, well, what are you?
Can you guess?
Yeah, Generation Z. I did.
Good.
How do you know?
Because I can perceive things, and I'm right. You're just being elusive.
Are you a man though?
Let me just ask you a few basic questions.
Okay, yeah.
Right. Can a woman have a penis?
Yes.
Okay. Can a man get pregnant?
Yes.
Okay. If a man has a baby and it's through natural childbirth, where does the baby come out?
Vagina.
Through his vagina.
Yes.
There you go, guys. There you go. This is the gift that keeps on giving.
Yeah.
Okay, here's another one, right?
Like what I said.
Okay, trans rights are human rights.
Yes, they are.
What rights do trans-identifying people don't not have that I have? What rights don't they have?
I'm here counter-protesting, so those rights don't get taken away.
That's not answering the question.
I
What
don't
rights?
think anyone's human rights should be taken away, and that's why I'm here.
Trans rights are human rights.
Mm-hmm.
What rights don't they have? Who's trying to take them away?
In many countries, trans people don't have rights.
What about the UK?
Yeah, we're in the UK now.
I'm here to protest if they could get taken away.
Oh,
so
they haven't been taken away.
Not yet, no.
So
It's definitely a risk, isn't it?
I don't think so, because I think that what was very clear about the Supreme Court ruling was that they were absolutely explicit that the gender reassignment, not gender as you mentioned before, was completely separate and was protected. So whatever happens, that is from discrimination. So what you're doing is it's a completely separate stream. It's a protected characteristic along with sex,
and they're not
along with
cracking
race.
down. And they're not cracking down on hate crime.
But you're calling a poster hate crime.
Is this a hate crime?
Any hate speech
Is this hate speech?
against a protected characteristic.
Is that hate speech?
Yeah.
What is autogynephilia? That's what it says. That's the question on the bottom.
Oh, you got all the buzzwords.
What is it? Yeah, I know. What is it? I genuinely want to know do you know what it is? You don't have to.
I do. It's the word that people are using to describe trans women because they want to transition.
What does it mean? What does auto mean?
Autos like self.
Self. So what is gyna?
Like gynecology.
So female. So
Genitalia.
self, female, and philia is
Love.
So it's self, female, loving. What it is a medical or clinical condition where a man is sexually aroused by the idea of himself as being female. There is an equivalent sort of auto-androphilia in which trans mass people identify or are aroused by the idea of themselves as being male, but it's far less prevalent. So it's not, when you're saying it's something that they use for describing trans women.
Well, you're using it to describe, you're using that term to describe trans women when when you're not taking into account the fact that what sexual arousal from wanting to be women.
Sexual arousal, yeah. When they get a euphoria boner for going in female spaces. That's the term that they use themselves. Just get an X account and have a look and listen to these.
I've got an X account.
Well, listen to these.
You Blue Sky? No social media at all?
Oh no, I've got X.
Oh, you are
X, not Blue
and
Sky.
Instagram.
Yeah. So basically, I mean, from my standpoint, that this ideology is being pushed by misogynistic autogynephiles, and you're protecting them.
Hell yeah, I am.
Pardon?
Hell yeah, I am.
Yeah.
Why?
So you're
Why do you think
protecting, a male, predatory males with a paraphilia who get off by going into female spaces and getting a euphoria boner and frightening
I'm
these women.
Trans women.
Yeah, which are men.
That's your opinion.
Predominantly autogynephiles.
That's your opinion.
Why are there not more people here who are representing trans mass people?
Because the argument wasn't about trans mass people. That's probably why.
But do you know who Rose is in terms of the court case? Yeah, so who is Rose as far as you're concerned? Is Rose a hero or is Rose a...
I'm here to counter-protest these. Yes?
Yeah, but they're here not just for standing for the good of their benefit, they're here for the tribunal.
I'm here for general trans rights.
Okay,
right?
But I'm asking about
But there's
Rose.
people stood here with these signs.
Me, I'm the only one stood here with this. Just me.
Obviously the argument is going to be we're talking about trans women because this is what
That's men.
But
we're talking about.
that's the
your
tune of the
opinion.
case. That's what they're here for. In terms of the nurses, do you know anything about the legal case that's happening? That's why they're all standing here.
Bits and pieces.
What's your view on that? So who is actually in the tribunal? So you're here protesting the people who are here because they're protesting what's happening in the court case. So you don't seem to be familiar with what's actually happening in the legal side.
I'm counter-protesting the opinion that trans women are men.
So you're not even here to do with the court case, you're just here because women are standing and advocating for what they say single-sex spaces, and you're here going, trans rights are human rights.
Yes.
Do you think a young girl, I don't know, 13-year-old, should be forced to shower next to a male pure naked in a changing room purely because he identifies as female?
I don't think anyone should have to shower in front of anyone.
Being
honest.
Well, this ideology allows that because it allows men into those spaces.
I don't think anyone should
Not
have
even
to shower with
showering.
anyone.
Okay, just to be naked. Just to be naked in the changing room. Is it okay for a man?
Shouldn't people be able to have cubicles to get changed separately if they wish to?
Yeah, but not all places do that allow men into them.
No, but maybe if that's the problem, then maybe they should instead of.
Well, that would be.
What they started doing since the Supreme Court ruling is a lot of the changing facilities, particularly like leisure centres and gyms and everything else. They've turned all of the what used to be male and female sexes into what's called changing villages, which is now communal mixed-sex spaces. So you've got mothers going in there with kids and children who are being changed in a semi-naked state next to young men or old men and everything else. Do you think that's reasonable based on...
Do they have cubicles in those?
I think some of them do, but essentially they've separated them so there's no difference in the toilets as well, so it's just one single bank.
If there's cubicles, I don't see a problem.
What if there's not?
Then maybe they should have some cubicles.
Yeah, but what if there's not? What do those women do?
What if there's no cubicles?
Yeah.
If they're comfortable, they can go in. If they're not comfortable, they can leave.
So women need to be excluded from those positions, those places because of men going in there.
Women who aren't comfortable don't have to do what they don't want to do.
Yeah, but they want to use the facilities, the leisure facilities.
Then maybe the issue is with the leisure centre not being accommodating to everyone.
Well, currently the state that it's in, that it should be accommodating for everybody. There should be a female-only space. But what this ideology does is allow men into that female-only space because they say that they're conflating gender with sex.
I'd happily go into a changing room if a trans woman was in there.
But you realise that consent is not transferable. So what you would do is not to say what other women would do.
If someone doesn't want to, they don't have to.
What about women from a cultural background where they are not permitted to mix with males? So, for instance, we had lots of cases where women who were using leisure centres, who were attending things like single-sex swimming sessions, who were from either particularly sort of Islamic communities or Bangladeshi communities where they were not permitted to be in male presence. They had men, what you would describe as trans women, trans femmes, attending those sessions, which meant that if word got back to the family of these women, that they would then be barred from those events. So the women stopped attending those sessions just because a male decided he wanted the validation of attending that women-based or women's single-sex event.
Cheers, mate. Thank you. Are you watching? All right. Thank you. Yeah.
And do you think that's fair on those women who are already having what you might describe as like cultural and sexual barriers to attend in the first place, that they then were no longer permitted to go to those single-sex spaces because they were becoming mixed sex by just one person self-identifying? Do you think that's fair or reasonable? Because I don't. I think that's really awful.
I think spaces should be made inclusive for everyone.
But who's everyone when you've got a single-sex space for women? Oh, right, okay. Yes, we'll do. I think they're coming out soon. I'm going to grab your email because I want you to send me some stuff.
Yes, I will.
Or I'll put my email in the back of your thingy, and then you can choose whether or not you send me some stuff. But
Thank you so much for your time and being honest with us.
Yeah. Just out of curiosity, where are you from?
Pardon?
Your accent's like real familiar.
Stockport, which is South Manchester. Do you go to the university here?
I do.
You do. Do you attend? Do you have gender studies as part of your course?
Not my course.
Okay.
But I do very heavily. My course does focus on a lot of biology.
A lot of biology. And what does it say about men and women?
What does it say about men and women? Well, there's two different definitions that we can go into there.
Right.
If that's what interests you. You can either talk about someone's chromosomes.
Yeah.
Or you can talk about hormone levels. Or you can talk about how someone self-identifies.
Right.
And that's very accepted within the science community as a whole.
Yeah, well the thing is the institutions have been corrupted.
Yeah.
You know, critical theory, you do postmodernism, critical theory, queer theory. They teach all that as well. You're smiling.
No. I go to uni to learn.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm doing.
Right.
You're studying something, is it biology?
Forensic science. But with my dissertation's on facial reconstruction.
Ah, so can you tell the difference between male and females in terms of facial reconstruction?
Sometimes you can't. Sometimes it's ambiguous.
What do you think about, was it Professor Alice Lowe, who said that you can't tell a skeleton was male or female?
It depends on a lot of factors, and sometimes you can't.
On a perfectly preserved skeleton, can you tell if it's male or female?
Not always. Not
by doing
particularly.
by doing a chromosome test or a bone test?
A lot of the time on bones, you can't do chromosome testing because a lot of the DNA is that degraded.
But I talked about a pristine
skeleton.
A theoretical pristine skeleton.
How long has the skeleton been there?
5 minutes. Just found it. Yeah.
5 minutes.
I just pushed him in front of a bus. You want to go and check out if it's female?
No, but if we're talking about just the skeleton, so there's no flesh on it, like it's the skeleton.
Yeah.
Go for it. Yeah.
How long has this person been dead?
5 minutes.
5 minutes, and it's just a skeleton.
Yeah.
How did they get rid of the flesh?
It's gone through a blender.
How did they get rid of the flesh?
Piranhas.
Piranhas.
Yeah. Yeah.
Piranhas?
Hypothetically, yeah.
So
they've removed all the flesh.
There'll be some flesh on there
Yeah,
to be able to test.
But could they, by testing the bones, tell?
By testing just the bones?
Yeah.
Not always, because it might be
What
degraded.
is the percentage of not always? So give me a percentage on that.
There hasn't been any studies done on it. There's cases where they're like, hey, we found these bones.
Give me an email.
Yeah.
I was going to ask you to do it on camera.
I can send you stuff about the bone thing as well.
Please do. Oh, thank you, love. Yes.
That's like,
Nice nails. Thank you.
Just reaffirming my assertion that this is the long march through the institutions where they poison the minds of young people in universities like this over the road.
Yeah. Is that right?
Yeah.
Your mind has been corrupted by institutions like this. And you can't...
Institutions like this?
Yes.
They haven't said anything about this.
Yeah. Pardon? No, I'm saying that. When I talk about institutions like this, I'm talking about all the universities. All the universities across the Western world are corrupting young people's minds. It's a long march through the institutions. All right, it's a political strategy to fundamentally change society without a revolution and spilling blood. what you do is you get to the institutions first. It's the same playbook which has been played by Mao's Red Guards in the Great Leap Forward. All right, it's the same that's been played by Pol Pot's Khmer Rouge, the Hitler Youth. What you do, it's just the ideology is exactly the same. The ideology is absolutely the same. You get to the youth, you corrupt their minds, and then they disrupt society.
I think it's a bit anti-intellectualism.
Okay, well, it's quite plain and simple. I'm glad that we had this conversation. You're a perfect example of it.
I disagree with you, but I'm glad we had a chat.
Yeah.
Yeah, you were very respectful to talk to.
Thank you. Okay. Unlike
You're
me.
something else.
Unlike me.
You're something else.
Yeah, well, do you know what? I've got a little bit tired of it.
Your hand at the end.
I've got a little bit tired of it now, you know. So I speak a little bit blunt, a bit more bluntly now. I used to do the mental gymnastics a little bit by not wanting to offend people, but now I don't really care because
it's okay. You don't have to talk to me.
Because I know I don't. But basically, you're supporting the sterilisation and mutilation of children.
I have friends who have children that consider themselves to be non-binary. Those children.
What's non-binary?
Non-binary is when you don't identify with the binary gender, so you don't identify as male or as female. You identify outside of that. It might have aspects of different genders. It might be a rejection of all gender.
Sounds like someone just wanting attention to me.